All right, good afternoon, and welcome to You've Got This, How to Beat Imposter Syndrome. I'm Mimi Bliss. And, when I look out at an audience like this, as I have since Women's Weekend started, I just see these incredible, bright, high-achieving, very accomplished women. And yet I know that for some of us, or for any of us at any given time, we think, oh, wait, like, it's the woman over there, right? Like, she's talking about her. Do they know? Will they find out? And there's sort of that doubtful feeling, like, do you belong? And that's what we'll cover with imposter syndrome. That idea that sometimes we underestimate our own abilities. We don't see the reality of what we've done. And that can hold us back. It can prevent us from taking advantage of opportunities. And if we don't see that in ourselves, sometimes we can see that in others, people we work with, people within our family. So our goal for today is really to look at what is this? Like, what does this mean, the idea of imposter syndrome? And what are steps or strategies that we can take to feel more confident and comfortable in any situation? Our panel is women who are leaders at the highest levels in their fields. I will start and work my way down. Valerie Ashby is the Dean of Trinity College of Arts and Sciences for Duke. She came to Duke 5 years ago from the school up the road, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
And we still love her.
We do. And she chaired the chemistry department. So she is a chemist by training, has won many teaching awards. And for any of us who have heard her speak, we know she's just a champion for women and for everyone, for students, for alumni, for faculty, for staff. And of particular interest to this conversation is that she speaks frequently about imposter syndrome and has been interviewed by national publications on that topic. Major General Diana Holland is the commander of the South Atlantic Division of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And what that means is, like, that's the Caribbean. So when you think of hurricanes coming down the coast, like coming through Puerto Rico and through the Caribbean, she is managing that response. She is a spokesperson in those situations on what is being done to restore power there. She was also the first female commandant of West Point and has a Master's of Arts degree from Duke. Lisa Borders is a Duke graduate and a member of the Duke University Board of Trustees. She is owner of her own management consulting firm. And what I love is your leadership experiences, like public, private, nonprofit. It spanned probably all of the areas in which you all work. She recently chaired the Borders Commission, which made recommendations to the U.S. Olympic Committee. She has been an elected official in Atlanta. She was inaugural CEO of Time's Up, the organization that advocates for women, the commissioner of the Women's Professional Basketball Association, the WNBA, and an executive at Coca-Cola. And she gave the commencement, I'll stop now. I don't want to, okay. So what I want to do, before we get started, I want you to turn to the person next to you and take 1 minute and share your answer to the question of why this session. Take 1 minute. We'll start with the question about running for office, as you asked. I may flip the order since you're in a different order.
Oh, you want to start with Valerie?
We'll start with Valerie's. Yeah. I may flip.
Kimberly, why this session?
Welcome back. So we all come here in different places with different experiences. I talked to some women before we started, and several people said, I've transitioned careers, or I'm doing something different. So there's probably, like, transitions may be highly represented in this room, but we all come from a different place. And I'm going to start with Valerie. You have spoken a lot about imposter syndrome, especially on university campuses, and you describe it as a feeling. What's the feeling?
It's horrible. It's a painful, so I'm glad that you're laughing, because what I know is that when you actually feel this, it's not funny, right? It's painful. And often when I do sessions on this, we laugh a lot because you need to counter that so that people can actually take talking about it. So the feeling for me was a sense of, I always tell students, it's this feeling that any day, and you don't know who they are, but they are gonna find out that you are not supposed to be here. For me, it was a feeling that I could not make any mistake, because it wasn't that I made a mistake, it was the feeling that I was a mistake. It's a feeling that it's an interesting feeling. So it's one of those feelings where you're constantly, you may be a person who's highly supportive of other people, but the language that you use in talking to yourself about yourself is not that same language. It is nerve-wracking. It's the feeling that my gifts and talents are not valued as much as yours, and I'd rather have yours than mine. I could go on
no,
and
that's
on.
great. So let's hold there, and we're going to come back to strategies, right? Like what you've done. What I love is you can then talk about what you've done there. Diana, you have been in situations where you're often the only woman in the room. And I read an interview that you did with a military publication where you talked about getting leadership roles very early in your career. Like, what do you know? There are 30 people reporting to me. And the importance of having confidence and not underestimating your abilities, even when you may be the only person in the room. Talk to us about that, what that felt like in that situation.
You know, at first, of course, that's very intimidating. When you know that in your first assignment in the Army, you're going to be standing in front of 30 soldiers. In my case, they were all men. And, you know, the image of a military leader is tall, strong, loud, low voice, whatever. You know, in most of those things, I am not, certainly not tall. So, you know, how do you, so I was nervous about that. I wanted to make a good first impression. I wanted to be accepted. And I didn't want something like that in my intro to take away from or feed any kind of possible images they had of women in the military. So honestly, I put a lot of pressure on myself, which was not necessary. What I learned early on was, you know, the Army, as in the case probably of many professions, it's a team event. We are all in it together, and they want me to be successful in the way that I want them to be successful. My style tends to be collaborative to begin with, and not overly directive unless I must absolutely be that. And that was really all that my soldiers were looking for, was to be part of the decision, to understand why the decision was being made, and they wanted to be a part of the solution. And so I have, from that early experience, that seemed to work, and that's really what I've carried on for the rest of my career.
Yeah. And Lisa, you mentioned one of the most resilience-building opportunities that you had was running for public office for the first time. And I will say another thing that struck me, sort of as backdrop, if that's a piece of that, is you mentioned when you did the commencement address, integrating a private school in 1969 in Atlanta, and what that experience was like. Talk to us about that, and then the experience of running for public office for the first time, when people really are saying, it's not just that you're imagining it, they really are saying, really?
Sure.
Yeah.
So in 1969, which was 41 years ago, so almost 2 generations, integrating an independent school in the South was something that was kind of unheard of, right? It was the civil rights era. Atlanta is my hometown. It's called the cradle of the civil rights movement because Dr. King and many other civil rights leaders were from there and started the movement in the city. Integrating that school at 12 years old and being called the N-word on a daily basis from 7th grade to 12th grade was terrifying. But what it also did was create in me a sense that I did, in fact, belong at the school because I graduated and I was accepted early admission to Duke when my classmates hadn't even applied to college. So having that experience at 12 through 17 or 18 when you graduate, laid a very firm foundation for an ability to overcome whatever the perception was that other people had of me. Regardless of what I was doing, I walked into the room and they had a preconceived notion of who I was. Fast forward to 2004, and I'm running for office for vice mayor of the city of Atlanta and president of the city council, and people aren't calling me the N-word, they're calling me Republican. Now, just so you all understand what that means in the city of Atlanta, we call Atlanta the blue island in the sea called Georgia. Y'all didn't get that, did you? So for someone to call you a Republican, particularly if you are African American, is like the kiss of death. And I can remember thinking as people started calling me this, and sometimes they'd say it to my face. Oftentimes they just say it to the media or say it in town halls where I wasn't present. That's called a whisper campaign. And it's meant to debase you in some way, right? And so I remember thinking when another candidate, my adversary, said to me, "You're a Republican," I said, "You're gonna call me a name? That's all you got? Let's go," right? And it was predicated on the experience I had when I was 12. And I can remember my mother saying to me, "These people are not paying your tuition." This is in the school when I'm 12. "They're not paying your tuition. They don't drive you to school. They don't study for you or write your paper. Why do you give a damn what they think?" Fast forward to 2004, this gentleman's calling me a Republican. I can hear my mother's voice in my head saying, "Why do you give a damn what he thinks? Just go ahead and demonstrate your ability to do the job that you are campaigning to do."
Wonderful. Valerie, you talk about the importance of sort of identifying what are these feelings and then being able to overcome them and move on. What was the step? Talk to us about that.
What was the
Overcoming those feelings of imposter syndrome and then that allowing you to move forward. I think one of the pieces, take it where you kind of take that in any direction, was the breaking the silence, or naming it.
So the number one thing that I always tell, and I talk to faculty, students, staff, the number one thing that I tell people is that you better have a team.
Yeah.
And we talk about what that team is, who's on that team. And we use the word mentor so much that, overused probably. But you need a team. And I like to talk to people about having a team of not just what you deem as mentors, but what I call sponsors. So these are people I tell my students, when I'm looking at you, I'm mentoring you, and that may be 30 minutes, and I walk away and I go to the next person, and that's 30 minutes with them, and they have my complete attention for that 30 minutes. But I might not think about opportunities for you when I walk out the door. My sponsors, which I have a team of 4 who happen to be all men, which is another story, think about me all the time. They're thinking about me right now. And wherever they are, they're thinking, "Oh, wow, this would be great for Val." And I'll get these calls or I'll get these opportunities. That's how I got to Duke, by the way. One of my sponsors said, "That's a great job." And I thought, that's going to be interesting for a Tar Heel. And lo and behold. But these are people who know you incredibly well, aren't trying to make you into them, but trying to make you into the best person you can be. And they're constantly looking for opportunities. They're also people I call when I have, by the way, when I was about 40, I'm 53. When I was about 42, 43, I decided I was not going to live like this anymore with this. It was just too much. And really took some steps. And I actually hadn't felt this weight of imposter syndrome since then. But a part of that is breaking that silence with people who can immediately look at me and say, "Val, that's just not true." Right? And help me change the narrative. And it took me about a year of really working through some constant steps with them, getting that feedback. They're also not cheerleaders, as you know, right? So I don't call my mother because she thinks everything I do is great, right? I need a reality check, right? Not my cheerleader. I need cheerleaders sometimes, but that doesn't help me with this. Multiple things they help me with. Not overworking, because we often end up being people who overwork because you're constantly trying to prove something. Getting over perfectionism, changing the script in my brain of what I say to myself. It doesn't even dawn on me now that I'm not okay. Like, I don't think I'm the world's everything, but I just know what I do, and I'm satisfied with that, and I know where I'm supposed to be. And that shift happened with people who really knew me, giving me that kind of feedback over years, and they continue to do it.
I want to pick up there on the idea of a feedback buddy. And I heard that first from a woman, very senior level in a corporate environment, sort of only woman in the room. She goes, I have a feedback buddy. And that's the idea. It's not a cheerleader. It's someone who gives open feedback, but gives you a reality check. Like, really, you're okay. And maybe here's an area where you could improve. Talk to me about that, your thoughts on that.
Well, fortunately in the Army and in our organizations, we automatically have that. We have a deputy commander. In my position, I have a deputy commander. I have senior people that work around me. I have a command sergeant major that I'm partnered with. And I count on them, that trusted circle, to be honest with me. If I say something or we're doing something that's counterproductive, if we need to change the direction of the organization, if we need to do messaging differently, then they're going to be honest with me. I need them to do that. And they should know. I tell them, and I try to reassure them that they have permission to tell me that we should be doing something differently, or what we're doing is the right thing. And closely paired with that would be surveys. We do anonymous surveys in the Army. We are mandated to do command climate surveys, which I find to be immensely informative. That is where people will tell you how your organization is doing. And sometimes they'll say, and General Holland, you do X, and you specifically. And it's hard to take, it's hard to read, but I like that, because those are good checks on me, and then they see that I am responding to that, and that makes them feel invested. Command climate survey. Every commander in the Army at all levels has to have their first one done within the first 60 to 90 days, and then you do them annually after that. And there's a standard set of questions, and then you can build free questions, open questions that they can actually type in full answers to them.
How do you find those people? Like, what's the way, that sort of challenge of, I've got to ask for feedback, both the good kind, the positive, and the realistic. I would think you have many people asking you for feedback, and you've had that experience.
But I've had experiences where, and I completely agree with the team concept and with getting feedback on a regular basis. I have gone through leadership programs similar to this one, and I have met women in particular who have become very good friends. And I will name one, because you all may have heard of her, Stacey Abrams. Have you all heard of Stacey Abrams? Okay, so Stacey Abrams in 2004 was the deputy city attorney for the city of Atlanta. We went through something called Leadership Georgia together, which is just leaders from all over the state that they want to bring together and expose to one another, blah, blah, blah. Stacey and I were in this same class. She was deputy city attorney. I was not yet vice mayor. I run for vice mayor, I win, Stacey becomes my lawyer. I would say, while presiding, we're going to do X, Y, Z. I would turn and look at Stacey, and she'd go like this. I'd say, on second thought, we're going to turn left, not right. Stacey, to this very day, is a good friend. She managed a campaign for me. As you now know, she did not win the governor's race in the state of Georgia, but she's the most powerful Democrat in the country right now. But she's also very candid, and she's candid without being cruel. She can tell me, you need to put on lipstick, or you need to sit up straight when you're giving, and I can hear her right now telling me I'm not sitting up straight in my chair. But I have a cadre of women, and I call it my cabinet. Some people call it a kitchen cabinet, but it's the team that you're talking about. And they give constant feedback on what I'm doing, how I'm doing. And I feel free to pick up the phone and call her or any one of those women and say, I'm thinking about doing fill in the blank. What do you think? Can you give me some input on that? Or do you think this matches my personality or my skill set? And they give me good feedback on a regular basis.
So that can be someone, it doesn't have to be someone you work with.
Right.
It can be someone from the outside, someone who gives that outside perspective and that reality check.
Very helpful.
What do you see? So you see this a lot in I'll say women because we're an audience of women, but you see this in the women around you, or women who come to you, or women who work with you, or students. What do you see, Valerie? I'll start with you, in women that makes you think imposter syndrome, or these are some symptoms and here are some recommendations.
So one thing that I would always say to audiences is that they always ask me, who has imposter syndrome? Like,
Yeah.
who are the people who?
Yeah.
And I say one common thread: high achievers. And then they have this pain in their chest because they're thinking, she can't be talking about me, because they can't even own the word high achiever. But it's only high achievers. People who are not really trying to operate at their highest don't walk around thinking about whether or not people think they're the best at something. They just don't. And that's not putting down people who operate in a different space, but only high achievers kind of operate in this space. So I've done this with men, with women, all races, you name it. It's high achievers is the common thread. Okay. Having said that, what I see among people who have this, and there are more women and underrepresented people who I see in this space, but it's high achievers. Perfectionists. That's one of the high qualities that we see. The inability to say no. I carry around a sheet of paper that I pass out whenever I do this. It's 20 ways to say no. Because we don't know because our no says yes. Our no is, call me back in 3 months. Well, it turns out in 3 months, I'm going to be equally as busy as I am now. But that's people pleasing. Just can't imagine saying no to something. It is this real sense of everybody else is something that I am not. And I can see it in my students. I can see it in other faculty. They're exhausted.
What do you tell
that's
them?
also one. If you're always exhausted, something is wrong with it. There's also a sense from women, and not just women, that there's more than 100%. And the math that they do is there's 100% of my job life, there's 100% of my personal life, there's 100%. Split the pie. And getting people to split that pie and get real. So I tell people, whenever women or anybody come to me and they say, I did 120%, I say, let me tell you what just happened. 20% of something else did not get done. Whether that was sleep, relationships, friendships, time with your family, whatever, 20% did not get, there's no such thing as 120%. And the women tend to want to carry more than 100% as if that is, there's an award for it. There isn't one.
How do you flip the script?
You know, it starts, I think, with self, because I agree with Valerie 1,000%. As I was listening to her, all I could think was guilty, 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 guilty. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a ownership way. Like, just own it. Like, you can't solve a situation until you embrace it and say, this is a challenge for me, right? So at the end of the day, I find myself talking to myself in my head, because I realize that women in particular, because Valerie's right, it happens, imposter syndrome, across genders and ethnicities and races and religions. But women in particular, I think we share this. We are taught to nurture, but we are not taught to navigate or negotiate life, right? We are taught to take care of everybody, our children, our partners, our spouses, our families, but we don't take care of ourselves. So typically, my new thing in 2020 is I got to take care of me first. And I always felt guilty about that in previous years and previous lives. But I'm borrowing a page out of the airline industry safety briefing. Put your mask on first. Because if you don't, you'll pass out when the oxygen level goes down. You can't take care of your son or your daughter, your brother, your spouse, or whatever. So I find myself talking to myself, and I have a whole list like Valerie does. The first starts with, no is a complete sentence. I never said no, because that meant I was weak if I couldn't handle 120%. So it is reconditioning. It's flipping the script, if you will, in your own head, but you gotta own it first, and then you can flip the script.
Well, yes, I would think when you mentor other women, you probably get asked for advice from other women. Can you give me examples of the kind of advice you would give or experiences you've had with flipping the script?
I guess I would start with what exactly is causing you this sense of insecurity, or what is making you feel vulnerable? Is it something in your background? Is it an experience that you had? Is it the people you're working with? Is there something about the work environment that's causing that? I would start with what is the source of it, and then address it. If it's occurring in my organization, and I am sensitive to who is not talking in this meeting, who is not included here, who is the person who stays too late, who's the person that doesn't seem to be asking for help, doing it all, is the perfectionist, isn't taking care of themselves, and try to help them in that way. But I would always go back to, help them narrow down what is it that's causing you to have this anxiety, because life is too short to have that kind of anxiety day after day.
And I like that. The idea of how can we support others is we need to identify it, right? And find it if someone doesn't speak up. I want to touch on something that I see in my work. So my background's in television. I was a TV reporter, and I work with leaders on public speaking. So if there's an anxiety and someone has a major speech or presentation, like, it's going to come out. So I see some of this. And what I really coach people to do is look at your language, right? Like, are we saying, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about, or I may not know as much as the other people in the room, to really be aware, back off that, and use more confident language, like authority without being arrogant. In our experience, what we found. Talk to me about language, what you see and what you recommend, because that's like a real tangible step. I see you nodding your head.
I'll jump in with a little language that I recommend that you pay attention to yourselves. Never and should. I should be able to do all 10 of those things and look pretty at the same time, and not be tired, and have a great attitude, and look like I've been to the gym 4 times a week. Like, I should will kill me. Never, right? I never. Why should I need help, right? I never needed help before, right? Or I just pay attention to that language for myself. And then there's a word that I always share with people, which is shame, which is sometimes at the heart of what is happening here, which is hard to actually ask for help if there is shame. And I just remind myself what it means to me is should have already mastered everything. That's crazy. But it didn't seem crazy when I was doing it to myself. It looked like everybody else had already mastered everything. So that language for me is really, really important.
So watching those words, catching them, keeping it simple. What else? What about, the idea of speaking up, right? Someone's a little tentative about, I was an expert in this area, but now I'm in a new environment. What are ways to speak up and feel comfortable with that and do so in a good way?
So I've chosen to use declarative statements as opposed to I think, or I just state the fact, whatever, the sky is blue, the road is long, whatever is the perspective that you have, without even saying, I think the road is long, or from my point of view. No, if you're speaking, it's from your point of view. Just say whatever it is you're going to say. And I think when you're sitting in a room and you're the only woman, because it's happened to me a lot, it's happened to all of us, I'm sure, and all of you, I just own it. I have a different perspective from these people, and they are all men, and they are all wearing white shirts and blue ties, right? I look different, my background is different, my expertise is different. If I don't speak up, they will miss out. I have gifts that I need to share at this table, in this room, in this meeting, wherever we are, and shame on me if I don't share these gifts and the company doesn't get better or the organization doesn't move forward because I didn't do my part by adding the value of my perspective or my experience.
And it's mindset, right? You're there for a reason. They invited you, they want your perspective.
That's right.
What do you think?
So if I could shift just a little bit to mindset, I like to, my philosophy in my personal and professional life could be captured in one phrase, and that's value added. And in the social media world, because I enjoy telling the Army story through social media, it's hashtag value added. I try to use that in my different postings. And what that means to me is, what I bring to the organization might be different than what my predecessor brought to the organization. It might be different than what my peers bring. It might be different than what I expected coming into the organization. But I try to walk in, assess the environment, and what is it I bring? I am not the fastest runner amongst all of my peers and soldiers who are 20 years younger than me. I'm not as tall as everyone. I'm not, I may not have as much experience as some of the people on my team, but I bring something to this, and I just got to figure out what that is. And once I can do that, and they see that I bring something else that they weren't expecting, then they appreciate what I bring, even if it's not what they thought. And that's what I encourage all of our employees and our soldiers to do. Don't worry about whether you're as good as the person next to you or the person before you. Figure out where you fit. What is your niche? What is your special talent that you may not even realize that you have right now, but is actually going to be so value added that it's going to make the whole team better. And that goes to language as well, and it can feed everything. And then at the end of the day, however it turns out, you can always look in the mirror and say, I did my best, and I was value added in the best way I could be.
I like that. I've heard that, like a phrase to keep in mind is what you said, from a fill-in-the-blank perspective. Like, I'm not saying you're wrong and I'm right. I'm saying from a marketing perspective or a human resources perspective, you're adding perspective and you're adding value. What about, I want to pick up on something you said earlier, which was, as you look around yourself and you see someone, well, maybe she isn't speaking up, right? Like, this person is never talking in the meeting. I know they're very qualified, that you identify that and you take proactive steps. Valerie, if you could talk to us about that, how we support others, because that's very rewarding and very important.
Sure. I just had a conversation yesterday with one of my few women in computer science faculty members. We're working on it, but she's still one of the few. And this is the question, like, how do you help someone else in a meeting, in a committee meeting? And we talked about strategies for doing this, because what I see often is the woman or the underrepresented person in the room will make a statement, it will be disregarded, and 10 minutes later, someone else will say it, and it will look like God's gift to humanity. And now what I do in rooms is I say, okay, wait a minute. If I see that, I'll say, wait. Let's stop for a second. She just said something really important. Can you repeat that again? Let's talk about that. Or if that happens, I'll say, that's exactly what she just said. Right? No. So I want to coach women in particular in settings like that where you're one, maybe, or two in a room, to look out for each other. Or anybody in the room, really. I try to do it. But that's really an important tool, I think. Because I assume goodwill. It's really important for me to assume goodwill, or you can be angry about something every 10 seconds. But I assume goodwill. So I'm just assuming that that's such an autopilot response for you, this other person, that I'm going to help you with that, right? I'm not going to categorize you as anything. We're just, how do we help this team be better? If somebody doesn't recognize that was a brilliant idea and we should, value that and give credit for that and then sit with that from the person from which it originated, then, so those are simple things I think that one can do to help each other.
Diana, what do you do when you see someone who's not speaking up? As you said, you're looking for them, you're identifying them. What are some things that you say or steps that you take?
One of the questions I ask, if the team's coming to propose a solution to something or asking for a decision, I try to ask, all right, who has the opposing view? Okay, because unless there was unanimous development of what you're briefing me, there was some other opinions on how this was supposed to go. And so the person briefing is normally not the one who's going to advocate the opposing view. And so normally, it's often somebody who's in the room that's quiet. And I will gently, I try not to put people on the spot if they're not expecting to speak, but I am watching the room like a hawk and looking for who's not talking and bring that out of them, make sure they know that their voice is heard.
Lisa?
So I start even with the structure in the room, particularly if it's my meeting. So there are no square tables. I always use round tables. So no one can sit at the head of the table, including myself. If it's round, the message you're sending is it's collaborative and everyone is included. There's no pointy corners and there's no head of the table. And I tend to work from a collaborative approach, empowering others. So I tell people in advance, to Diana's point, not to put them on the spot, all right, you're up today. So be prepared, right? Be prepared. That is helpful to people because they know in advance. They're still a little bit nervous, usually, and particularly women. But what I've also found, not only calling it out, but affirming the woman that said whatever. I agree with Valerie when she said, fill in the blank. When I was at the NBA, there happened to be a fair amount of women, but not so many senior women. But we would literally, I would listen to what my peer was saying, and then whatever piece of what she was saying I could agree with, I would emphasize that point. So think about your emojis on your phone. You know how when somebody sends you a text message, you can put an exclamation point or a heart? That's what I was doing in those meetings, is putting an exclamation point or a thumbs up or a question mark or whatever it is on her statement. So that's giving her a high five in front of everybody in the room, right? It's a visible cue to her. So having a round table, telling people in advance, and then congratulating women as opposed to criticizing. Because, we sometimes criticize one another's hair, husbands, hemline, heels, hose. Do I need to go on? What we really need to do is help. That's the H that we should all be looking for, is help one another. So whatever strategy, in a meeting or wherever you are, I find myself in the grocery store telling women, I like your glasses. Who cut your hair, right? People are like, she's crazy. But they end up talking to me through the rest of the time that they're in the grocery store because now you made them feel good.
Yeah, you connected. So I'll pick up on the preparation piece. I have found out we can ask better questions, or the questions we really want to ask, and don't think of, 30 or 40 minutes later if we're given a moment to think about it. So I will ask you to turn again to the person next to her, maybe like a group of 3 or 4, and take about a minute to identify questions that you would like to have answered, and then we'll go and ask questions and we'll have a microphone. So take about a minute to talk to someone about a question. So we will now go to questions from the audience, and I will start here. Oh, wait, just one moment for the microphone. Oh, wait. There you go.
You said something that resonates.
Wait. Here's my favorite tip of the day. Hold the microphone like an ice cream cone.
Okay.
And then we will hear, if you take nothing else away, when you want to be heard, hold the mic like an ice cream cone. Go ahead.
You said something that resonated so much with me, where I'll be in a meeting and I'll say something, and then a couple minutes later, usually a man will say the same exact thing, and I don't have an advocate in the room. So how would you recommend that I address that? Because it's just me standing up for me.
That's a great question.
Without sounding like,
I know.
horrible witch.
Yes,
Call it out, Val, and tell it, so glad you agree with me.
Right, I like that. That's a great one. I'll use that.
Sorry.
I'll use that. I think you have to be your own advocate sometimes, and I think worrying less about people's opinion of you, because it's fascinating. Recently, I had 2 candidates. Quickly tell you the story. I had 2 candidates for faculty positions in a science department, a man and a woman. The man's portfolio of what he was going to do was risky, but people thought that was just brilliant. The woman's portfolio was was brilliant and risky, but they called hers risky. And so that's what happens sometimes. And you know, my job was to speak up, right? But sometimes you're gonna have to be your own advocate because there are labels that are already put on you. And don't worry about the label that comes from you speaking up for yourself. Forget that. Sometimes you just have to do it. Sometimes I would go to my boss, if my boss is sitting in the room, and say, can you help me with this? Because my job now as the boss in the room is to actually help, right? Male or female, doesn't matter. But I love this idea of, I'm so glad you agree with me. It's gentle, but it's clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Next question. Down here, right there, with the tan sweater.
Ice cream cone.
Yes.
Okay, serious career of imposter syndrome, and I have worked on it. And I think I hear a lot of what you've talked about so far is something I've been through, which I feel worthy of my success now. Took a long time, but I'm like, okay, but I did like kind of work for this too. But what you haven't talked about, and what I still struggle with, is the bumps in the road, the negatives. So when I lost my job, I was like, was looking for that proof. I really did not, I wasn't worthy. It was over my head. If I had been better, we would have raised the capital, whatever it was. Like, it was proof that I needed that I really wasn't good enough. So you all have done a phenomenal job of helping us feel worthy of our successes. But I wonder if you would spend a little bit of time talking about the bump in the road that necessarily isn't the proof I should have been looking for, that I was never that good in the beginning.
Oh, I totally have a story, but go ahead.
No.
I don't want to.
I'll get all three of you. Go ahead.
So the bump that I hit, and just remember the world that I live in, right? So I live in this world of academia where the gold standard is to create knowledge. Just sit with that for a second. Like, the people I work with on a daily basis create knowledge. Like, that's a weight. So those are the people who I'm looking at. I'm thinking, yeah, my job is to create knowledge. This is interesting. When I was in graduate school, I hit my major bump. And I tell this story because the pain of it lasted till I was 40. And I received what's called an L, low pass, in a course. Had to go from a PhD program to a master's program and earn my way back into the PhD program. Now, before then, it was in my head. At that moment, I had a data point. And the single thing that got me through that, and every other bump that I've hit since then, is my team. An honest team that I trusted. And I trusted my PhD advisor, who was the second person on my team, to say, Val, this is just a bump in the road. You're more than qualified to do this. I'm gonna show you how to do this. If you don't, he said to me, how are you gonna learn how to teach students who are brilliant, who hit bumps, if you've never hit a bump? Mm-hmm. It's like, you're not authentic when you say to a student, that's gonna be just fine. I can see greatness in you. How do you do that if you've had a perfect life? And so he helped me to count the bumps as my superpower, if I'm willing to share them. If I hide them, they're not my superpower, because now everybody thinks that I'm perfect. But if I'm willing to tell you what happened, I just helped somebody because I'm authentic, right? But authenticity comes with bumps. But if you share the bumps, it's phenomenal. So having my team to help me support me through that, but also helping me to value what those bumps are, and they happen all the time. I mean, all the time. That one was dramatic, but they happen all the time.
That's it. Diana, did you share the bumps in the road with people?
I think it's essential to be able to share with soldiers and young people where something hasn't gone well. And I try to do that when the opportunity arises, and encouraging for when folks do hit those bumps in the road and they're looking for advice and support, and give that to them, but also tell them exactly like you said, we all have had those bumps in the road. There's no one in the organization that hasn't had major challenges of some sort, and we are here to help you and share with us, or the generation coming up behind you, or whoever else. The more human we are in front of those who follow us, the better off we all are.
you want to add something?
Yes, I do. So I'm the oldest up here, I think. I'll be 63 this year. And when I was 40,
You just gave me a complex. I want to look like that.
I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, that hurt, Lisa. That hurt deeply.
Come on,
Keep
girl.
going. I'm sorry.
come
Keep
on,
going.
girl. Thank you. Thank you. I'll take that.
Wow.
But what I was going to say, when I was 40, it was not in vogue to show your authentic self. It was not. And where I was working in corporate America or in public office, you were not rolling up telling people what didn't work out. You were not doing that. It was a sign of weakness, just to be clear. So we are living in an amazing time when you can, in fact, open the kimono, peel back the curtain, whatever you want to call it, and demonstrate your authentic self, which means, because you are human, we are all imperfect. We are going to make some mistakes. And what I found myself doing, because I'm the perfectionist, right? How could I fail at something? Now, my big failure was running for mayor and not being elected. That was very, very, very public. It was one data point. One. One data point is what? One data point. 2 data points is a trend. So I had to take it and contextualize that failure, which turned out to be such a blessing, because I was afraid to show people that I couldn't be perfect all the time and couldn't achieve in a positive way. So we grew up learning that fear stood for false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. Because I had one failure did not mean I was a failure. It meant this particular circumstance didn't work out, but there was a pool of accomplishment or a pool of expertise or competencies that were around that were far bigger than that one bump. But I learned a lot through that bump. So we're living in a time where revealing who you are as a real person is rewarded. People actually see you as more human and more relatable today.
That's wonderful. Let's take another question over here and then come to this side of the room. So right there.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm a graduate student here, and I have a question about mid-career transitions and imposter syndrome that comes with that. So I have a background in engineering and have historically worked in almost predominantly male settings, and been a STEM female since I was very young, which was also unusual. So I've had imposter syndrome since I was quite young, and now I've done a sharp 180 and I'm going into international policy and global health, where I don't have the experience that a lot of the people that I'm going to school with, and I certainly don't, I'm a numbers person, not a words person. So I wonder if the three of you can speak to any circumstance where you did make a sharp trajectory change and how you dealt with some of that imposter syndrome of being, what am I doing here?
So the idea of making a sharp career change, which is interesting because I talked to at least 2 people before we started who said something very similar. Yeah. I'll start with Diana.
So, I've been in the Army for 30 years, so I can't speak to career change in the way maybe that you're thinking of it, but the organization that I'm in right now, the Army Corps of Engineers, by the way, do you want to come work for the Army Corps of Engineers? We need people in STEM, and
You just got a job opportunity. That says you're awesome, and she's amazing for recognizing the talent. Go.
and I assure you, you will not feel like an imposter there. But our civilian employees who have had those options of doing different things, they have all realized, and we have come to appreciate when they have made those job changes, those career field changes. So we have employees who were in the private sector doing something, got a different degree and went and did something else, and somehow made it into the Corps of Engineers, into federal government service after doing all these different things. And they are the most valued employees. They are most relied upon. The Army has taught us that the more diversified we can become, as stringent maybe as our path is, the more broadening opportunities. I mean, I came here as a full-time student for 2 years. That was broadening for somebody of my background. That is really valued and makes you better, and you're consulted more and you're leaned upon more to bring a more comprehensive answer to the challenges. So, I mean, it is a little scary. I have had jobs where I did not have experience in that particular angle of the Army, and I thought, how did I get here? Whose idea? You know, must not have been anybody else available. Here I am. But, you know, again, I bring something to the organization. It may not be what I thought. It may not be what my coworker is doing, but I bring something, and figuring out what that is, and your diversified background will be a combat multiplier, as we call it in the Army.
God, let's go. Yes, go briefly,
I
and then
just
we'll
wanted
take another question.
to sharpen that point even more, because Diana hit it just the nail on the head. So oftentimes, I'm going to bring in a sports metaphor. When the team has been playing and things are okay, but not working as well as they should, oftentimes, particularly in basketball, because we're here at Duke, so we're going to talk basketball, you bring in fresh legs, right? That's a new player, fresh eyes, fresh legs, fresh energy. What you potentially bring to a new environment where you don't have the experience is that fresh perspective. You have analytical skills which are fungible, which means you can take them from one environment and apply them in another. Do not call yourself a numbers person and deny yourself being a words person. I'm going to go back to the mindset piece, because maybe all the words people are going, dang, I can't do math, right? But you'd be there to help them with their math. So rather than think that you wouldn't fit, think you are unique. You are the unicorn that they are looking for. Go get it, girl. Go get it.
I love. We have some questions over here. Let's take right here and then back in the corner. Maybe we'll go back in a diagonal line.
Hi. So thank you for all your words. But you talked a little bit about how people who tend to have imposter syndrome are the people who are the perfectionists, the ones who work very hard, who overdo it. And I'm thinking to myself, but that's what got me here. That's why I am in the room, and that's why I have a seat at the table. And the reason I feel imposter syndrome is because everybody else around me is older with more experience, and I'm being put in a position of supervising them. So don't I need to work harder? Don't I need to be the perfectionist? And like, I'm going to self-perpetuate this cycle in my head. I get that. But sort of just if you could help elaborate a little bit more on certain other steps one could take, because that's what's playing in my head.
I hear you.
Valerie.
I totally hear that. So what I'm hearing from you makes me think of when I was an assistant professor on the tenure track. For those of you who don't know, that means you're earning your job, right, for 6 years. And so you're working essentially for yourself because you don't really have a permanent job yet. And I worked to exhaustion every day for 6 years. And I knew that because I would have to go home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for fear that I wasn't going to be able to drive home, like that tired. And then I'd go home and sleep for hours on end. And whenever I woke up, whether it was the middle of the night or a regular hour, I'd go back to work and I'd do it all over again for days on end, and then crash, go home. And that was my cycle. And then I got tenure. And what I proved to myself was that was what was required. And it turns out that wasn't right. I was done 20% ago, probably 30% ago. But I had data, I had given myself this really dysfunctional data to prove. And so then I thought, oh my gosh, if that's what it took to be an assistant professor to associate, Lord help, how am I going to get from associate to full? I don't have that again, and here we go. And so I hear you, okay? What I had to do, one of my partners here on my team helped me with my schedule. And what we do now is, and I still do it now, but I can pretty much do it on my own, except if I get in a bad space. I put myself on the calendar first, white calendar, put myself on I was scheduling 3 or 4 meetings at the same time because I couldn't say no. just crazy. And so I put myself on first. There's a set of things I do every single week because I can't recover 3 months from now. I need to recover on Sunday because Monday people expect me to show up as if the week before never happened. And so I set my schedule that way, and then I put everything else around it. And over the years, I have proven to myself that I am better at what I do in that way. And less is actually more for me. My thoughts are quicker, my solutions come better, I'm more open, I sleep. I tell my staff I sleep every night. Every night I go to sleep. Right? There's nothing I'm not up all night. People think I work relentlessly because of the job title. I'm like, no. Turns out I'm, gonna go get my hair done at 3:30. Literally, today. And I do it every Friday, right? I mean, so I had to prove to myself with resetting that it all wasn't required. And almost all of my team is older than I am when I came in the door. I've hired some people who are younger than I am, but almost all of them. Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to do now as a leader is set the example for imperfection. Right? I want you to know, no, you think that I'm working all the time. I'm actually not. Mm-hmm. That's how it looks like I'm working all the time because when I'm here, I'm happy and I'm not exhausted. And you just have to prove it to yourself.
I like that you model it. People subconsciously or consciously will
pick it up,
imitate what you're doing. Yeah, good. Back here.
So I'm day 52 into a new job. I ran for mayor of College Park, and I'm the new mayor of College Park.
Woo!
So Georgia, that is, which is why I knew that Lisa Borders would know that. But I'm also the first woman and the first African American to serve in the role, and so people think I can do. People think I can do a whole lot more than I think I can at times. There's a lot of faith that people have in me. The person who came in before me was there for 24 years. So there's a lot of expectations that I'm going to make so many changes and do so many things. And some of that is, in the form of our government is not possible because we've got a weak mayor strong council form of government. And some of it is I am just one person. So how do you balance that? And I'm looking at you, Lisa Borders, because you probably know more than you've been in this position, but just from all three of you. And Dean Ashby, I was smitten with you 2 years ago. I'm even more smitten now. Like, in my mind, you're on my team. Like,
yay, I love that.
But I just think you're amazing, and what an asset to the university. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Let's start here.
So first and foremost, did you notice when you said you were newly elected and the first woman and the first African American mayor of College Park, this entire room started clapping? Did you notice that? Let's do it again. So you got to hold that affirmation. You have been elected by your fellow citizens in College Park. So yes, they have faith in you, but you are just one person. So you're going to be educating people on a daily basis about who you are and what your brand is. Sort of to Valerie's point about sleeping, because you're going to need that. When I was in office, this is the don't do this story. I slept with 3, at that time we had Blackberries. I'm dating myself, I know. But I had 3 of them because I had a private sector job and I had city council and then I had my family stuff. Literally, these devices were in the bed with me beside my pillow because I was on call 24/7. Very unhealthy, very unhealthy. So over time, I learned to turn those off at a certain point and let the staff know that I was going to have those devices turned off. Because if you don't, you will work yourself into the ground. So I often tell women there's no such thing as balance. There's only rhythm. You need to move in the moment. So when you are at City Hall, you are at City Hall. When you're your personal self, you are your personal self. And you need to take some time for yourself. Something I didn't do when I ran for office, I lost 30 pounds. Because when I'm stressed, I don't eat. Some others, when they're stressed, they eat. So you have to be mindful of things you're doing to actually hurt your productivity. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, and I was highly ineffective at points, or I wasn't my best self when I was presiding over council because I couldn't even think straight because I'd only had 2 hours of sleep. So take care of yourself first. Your fellow citizens have already put their faith in you. You're going to be just fine.
Let's do right here in the middle. We had a question.
Wait, Diana wanted to add.
Oh, please do.
If I could just add to your question and to the previous question, I would recommend determining, first of all, like in the Army, I'm sure your professions are like mine. You can never give enough. It will be endless. And so determining what is it that I'm supposed to do in this leadership role, in this supervisory role. It's not the same as what everybody else is doing. There might be some overlap, but if you're focused on what they're doing and whether you're doing it or not as well, you're not, but what do I do as a leader? What are the must-dos? I like to frame it as, what are the must-dos, what are the should-dos, and what are the nice-to-dos? The must-do, it's either my boss told me to do it or I got an order from the Army to do it. Those are no-fail, and that I got to do those right. The should-dos and so on, and manage your time that way. And be careful. It's really hard, especially following somebody that was in the job for a long time, to not feel pressured to do as much as they were doing, or maybe at some point you'll get to that. But it's not necessary for you to do, I don't think, exactly what they did. What are the must-dos? Focus on that, delegate the rest, and then follow up. And you know what? In 9 out of 10 cases, if we fail to do something because I delegated it, if somebody's not dying, if it's not really, really serious, it's going to be okay and it's recoverable. And you got to give yourself permission to do that.
Good, thank you. Let's go to the middle. And then we'll come back to this side. Someone here.
Hello, I'm Madi, and I am a sophomore in the real world, which I like to say. So fairly new to my job and my career, and I love coming to events like these because it's so helpful, and I just want to be a sponge and take in so much information. And actually a lot of, what I've been hearing as someone that's early in my career is, the power of saying yes and seizing opportunities. So I thought it was really profound when you all were speaking on actually the power of saying no. And I would love to dive into that a bit further and ask you, are there instances you can look back in your lives and your careers where actually saying no helped you propel?
I'll start anywhere.
Yes. Absolutely. But it took, yes, okay. So I think about the impact of my mentors, which I just can't stress enough. My mentors actually give me the courage to say yes and the courage to say no, both. And I tell you that I have 4 that I've had now for 10, 20 years, depending on which one. And there's not a month that I go by that I don't pick up the phone and say, should I do this? Is this for me? And the question they ask me is this a great thing for you now? Sometimes we don't make it to the end of the sentence. Is this a great thing for you now? And sometimes, if that answer is no, the courage that I have and the belief that I have is, guess what? If it's not a great thing for me, it's a great thing for somebody else. And if I say yes, I'm holding somebody else's space. That's just the way I think about it. It can't be that if I don't do it, it can't happen. That's a level of arrogance that I have to let go, right? Like that cannot be right. Saying no to continuing down the research path that I was on, it's a big deal for academic researchers to change into administrative leaders. It's seen somewhat as a failure. Researchers think the last thing I want to do is be an administrator, okay, in academia. So to not keep going down that path, when I left UNC Chapel Hill, I had 4 PhD students still in my lab. We had NSF grants, and I was so ready to write that next grant to go after that next opportunity. And my mentors said no. I was chairing the Department of Chemistry, and they said, you love this. We should pay attention to the fact that you love this and think about what's the next thing on this path. And I had to say no to that, had to shut down my lab after, over several years. I had my lab running here when I was dean for 3 years. Not taking another PhD student, whew, no more science. That's a big no. But then I get to do this, and it's incredible. But on the front end, it did not look like that was a sound no for me.
Good. Let's do 2 more questions, and then I'll ask each of you just briefly kind of closing thoughts, and then I have a question for the audience. Go ahead.
Laura, I have a question. Lisa, you were talking about getting mentors, and you all were talking about getting mentors.
Just hold up the mic a little
Sorry.
more. There you go.
Talking about mentors and sponsors to help you. I started a company, and it's grown to about 20, 30 people. And before that, I was raising my children. And so I'm in a position now where I don't really have peers at my level to ask. And because I started this company, it's tutoring and college consulting, I don't really work with other people. So I'm struggling with, besides my friends that I've had for a long time, how do you find those people on your level to be that person to go to and to provide those answers and support when you're kind of in charge of everything and you do feel like I can't do anything wrong and I'm, livelihood of all these people falls under me and I don't have those levels or anybody above me to ask me about it.
Lisa?
Yeah, so what I have found, particularly with women who have started their own business, they feel exactly as you do. But first of all, let me say congratulations on starting your company and getting those 30 people. You're helping 30 families. Usually trade organizations is where I've seen a lot of women start. So whether it's marketing or sales or yours is consulting for education, I would say try there because they are women who are in the same profession and perhaps they have some sensitivities around the business that you are doing. And usually out of groups like that, you will find your cadre of people who are your people, your tribe that not only are in that business, but who are having some of the same challenges that you might be having. So I would say start there. The internet in this case is your friend, okay? I have been off social media for a year. I did it on purpose. It was hard to unplug, but dang, it feels good. And I know at some point I'll go back on, but finding groups that are similarly positioned, businesses or women, they don't have to necessarily all be in business, because remember, every woman is the CEO of what? Herself. You are the CEO of you. And so you have always been running a company. You've formalized it in the traditional sense now. But I would say start there with trade organizations.
One very brief question. Go ahead.
I was recently talking to an educator about a school decision for my son, and he has an older sister. My daughter is 4.5, and the teacher said, well, he's very independent and kind of does his thing, but she's a people pleaser. And so immediately I thought, oh no, like I'm a people pleaser and I don't want her to have like imposter syndrome, and I want her to make sure that she's getting, having confidence starting at an early age. So I was wondering if you all could provide some tips on how to start imprinting, that confidence at an early age, even 4.5 years old.
I'll leave that one to Diana and then we'll go to wrap up.
So I'm not sure
Maybe not 4.
So at a very young age, I said to my dad was a huge influence in my life very early on. He told me I could do, and I think I was probably 4 when he told me you can do anything, maybe not 4, but close to 4. You can do anything you want to do. You just have to work hard and be good to people. That was something that I was raised around. So at 6, I told him I wanted to be a Marine. And he had been a Marine, and so I don't think that's what he had in mind when he told me I could do anything I wanted to do. But at a very young age, rather than push back on whoever it was I was becoming and whatever my dreams were at 6, within a few weeks after that conversation, he put a pull-up bar in the door of my bedroom. He said, you want to be in the military? You got to have upper body strength and you need to be able to run. So let's start with the pull-ups. So, and you know, that was, the Army is a very physical place, and that is exactly what I needed at that stage. There was more involved in that, but that's kind of that's how serious he was about helping me, enabling me, finding the way to enable me. Even if he really didn't want me to be a Marine, he has since become my biggest fan and he's always there for me. But he didn't want that initially, that he had had a horrible experience in the Marine Corps in the 50s and he couldn't imagine his daughter going through that. But he gave me the tools to help me be successful, whatever it was I was going to do. And that would be the best way I can relate to your question is my dad in my life.
That is a wonderful story. Very briefly, this is like the 15-second version. Any parting words? I'll start here and go down. Just one thing you want to leave folks with.
Show up as yourself.
Show up as yourself. Diane?
You know, as I thought about coming up to this, joining this panel and looking at what is imposter syndrome, and I would just suggest that it's not that you're either in that category or not. I would suggest that it's probably a spectrum and that all of us have carry some sort of attributes or are affected by it positively and negatively. I mean, I think I would rather have somebody that is working really hard, that is perhaps a little bit, I would be looking for balance. Because the other end of the spectrum, I don't like either. The person who isn't self-aware, the person who's oblivious, maybe arrogant, not empathetic. And so, you know, maybe some of this is not, oh gosh, I'm either yes or no, and I'm showing some of these traits, and so it must be imposter syndrome. Some of that you can use to your advantage, and it can be a strength for self-growth and for better performance and having a well-rounded life.
Well said. 3 things. Believe in yourself. Don't worry about what anybody else thinks. Let the work you do speak for you.
Wonderful. Something I take away is the importance of a community and having the team or having others to talk to, and this is a wonderful place to do that. Our women's forums, the alumni organizations, and the women that you'll meet this weekend. So I encourage you, as we wrap up, before you go, I would turn to the person next to you and share one thing you'll take away from today and something you can use. I know after I came to Women's Weekend 2 years ago, I took one thing away from one panel and I used it, you know, maybe 2 weeks later, and I literally saw the person at the other end of the table just sit up and go, oh my. And it was an enormous confidence booster and just a great piece of advice. So I encourage you to use the community and have a wonderful afternoon.
Very good.
Thank you.